everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
And I'm Stew.
And today we're talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife, released in 2021, directed by Jason Reitman, written by Gil Keenan and Jason Reitman, and starring Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, Mckenna Grace, Logan Kim, Celeste O'Connor, Tracy Letts has a small part, Paul Rudd, and special appearances from a couple of well-known actors there towards the end, which we'll get into. This was supposed to be released back in July of 2020, but of course, because of COVID and everything, it got pushed back. It got pushed back a few times. Like I think it was supposed to come out in July, and then it got pushed. I forget when it was originally pushed back to. It might have been like the end of 2020, and then they pushed it to April or May or something, and then eventually it came out in November.
I think it was November 2020.
Yeah.
And then it got pushed back again to this year. So we finally got it. And I was quite satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I was actually, I mean, it's so, you know, I have a son now. He's 2 months old. So I'm not getting to see all these movies in the theater like I used to be able to see. And it's kind of interesting because normally I'm the type of person who goes and sees the movies, you know, the day they come out, or at least the weekend they come out.
Same.
And so now I'm not able to see these movies right away. And so I've seen some of the hype and some of the criticisms and stuff before I go see the movie. And so, I don't like it. I would much prefer, I like going to see the movie before kind of hearing too much about it. So that way I can kind of have my own opinion of it.
Right.
But in this case, I had heard some good things, and I had also heard, I hadn't really heard anything bad, but I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score, which was, I think it's in the 60s.
Yeah.
Which was lower than I was expecting. And honestly, I think it's lower than it needs to be. I
agree.
The audience score is like a 90 or something.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's pretty good. And I think that's where it should be.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of the reviews, so I don't know what the critics didn't like about it. But I'm glad to hear that you liked it, Stu.
Yeah, I really liked it, man. It was fun. I mean, it felt a bit corny at times, but it didn't. Yeah. It didn't take away from the movie too much. I really enjoyed it. Tonally, it felt a lot more like a traditional family movie than even the first two. There's a lot of adult humor in the first two. There's a little less in this one,
right?
But it works. I really loved it. I had a good time. Me and my wife were laughing, having a good time in the theater, and it was clearly a movie that was made for the fans of the franchise.
Yeah, I agree, and maybe that's why the critics didn't care for it, and maybe they had a problem with the fan service. But I thought it was really well done. I thought, like you said, it is more of a family-friendly movie, which is kind of funny because it's PG-13, whereas the first two movies are PG, and yet they have more of the adult humor in it. But I guess that's just the times, perhaps. But
yes,
I thought the tone of the movie was great. The comedy I thought worked pretty well. It's not hilarious by any means, but it's funny.
Yes.
McKenna Grace, I there weren't very many people in the theater when I saw it yesterday afternoon, but every time Phoebe, her character, gave one of her jokes, I laughed, and I think I was the only one in the theater that laughed at her corny jokes. But each one of her jokes I thought was funny.
Yeah, they were funny. I thought she told maybe one or two too many.
Right. Yeah.
It did kind of feel dragged out. It felt like some of them should have been like a deleted scene.
Right. Yeah.
But I still liked it. I thought it worked.
Yeah. No, I did too. Especially when, she's telling him to gozer. I thought that played off pretty well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the actors. I mean, Phoebe, McKenna Grace is kind of the main character, I would say, of this film, who we, learn is Egon Spengler's granddaughter. And I thought she did a fantastic job. She, is very believable as a Spengler.
Yes, absolutely. She acts just like Egon. She's very awkward. Her sense of humor is a bit off. I mean, it's still funny, but
right.
Not everybody gets it.
Right.
And she definitely captures the essence of a Spangler, like very, very, very well.
Absolutely. And I mean, it helps that she's got like the same glasses that Egon wore and everything. And
yeah, I didn't even notice that until they showed
until
it.
She held them up. Yeah. I mean, she looks like a young Egon basically. And I thought it worked really, really well. And we knew that from the trailer. I was actually going to say, I didn't watch the second trailer. I only watched the first trailer. And I'm glad I went back and watched the second trailer this morning, and I'm glad I didn't watch it because it doesn't necessarily give away too much, but there's just little things in the trailer where I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't see that. Like, for example, Janine is in the second trailer. Janine shows up at the dirt farm and kind of talks about Egon and how she's like, well, he didn't leave you with nothing. He left you. There's quite a bit of debt, and so I thought that was kind of a funny line. But I didn't know
when Janine showed up. I thought she was great.
Yeah, I did too, and I didn't realize. I'm glad she was in the movie, but I wasn't expecting it. So that was kind of a nice surprise. Whereas that would have been ruined in the trailer. There's also when Phoebe and Carrie Coon's character, whose name I can't remember now, the mom. Was it like Olivia or something?
I can't remember. Let's go.
Callie. I was way off.
Callie. Yeah, Callie sounds like Olivia. They rhyme.
Yeah, it's very close. When they find Egon's kind of hidden basement and the light is moving on its own, and that was in the trailer too. And so I, just little things like that. I'm glad I got to experience for the first time in the movie rather than in the trailer beforehand.
Yeah, I didn't see the final trailer as well. And I'm very glad that I didn't see it because it was quite spoilery,
right?
From what I hear. And I still haven't watched it. Obviously there's no point in watching it now. I've seen the movie, but I was very glad that I didn't watch it because watching the movie, I knew what parts were in the trailer because I knew what I knew that they had spoiled some things.
Right.
And when it got to the third act, I was like, that was probably in the final trailer. Yeah. So I'm very glad that I didn't watch it.
There were some shots of the final act, and I think you get if you know anything about Ghostbusters, you'd know who it was, but you see a very quick glimpse of Gozer coming out of the looked like a well almost, kind of in that old mountain.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like that. I'm really glad I didn't see. I've gotten in the habit now of watching the first trailer and then not watching any more after that. I still haven't watched the Batman trailer, even though I've been told by you and my wife that it doesn't give too much away, but I'm like, nah, just going to wait.
It doesn't. I mean, honestly, that Batman trailer is great. And I'm so glad. It's very well put together. And I'm so glad that it doesn't give too much away, despite it being a 3-minute trailer. But that's a great trailer. Yeah. I want you to watch it, actually.
And I might end up giving in and just watching it before, because I don't know if I can wait till March. But
that's a long time.
It is. But the new Spider-Man trailer, Spider-Man No Way Home, I haven't watched that trailer yet either, although they did show it in front of Ghostbusters yesterday. So I had to close my eyes. So I heard the whole thing. So there's some dialogue I heard that I hadn't heard before.
Have you seen clips of it online?
I am trying. Well, every now and again, I'll get on Instagram and there'll be a picture or something. I'm like, I didn't want to see that.
And that's exactly why I watched it, because I knew that was going to happen. I was like, I can't. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. So I would rather just watch it and get it out the way. But what's irking me more about the situation is people keep talking about it and theorizing about it. And it's irking me. It's irking the hell out of me. It's like, just shut up. Like, I want to be surprised.
Right. Yeah, me too. I mean, like, I totally understand wanting to theorize, and like people did that with Game of Thrones too. People, there were so many theories, and same with like going even back farther with Lost. That show, there were so many theories about that show. And I feel like you either A, are correct and then have kind of spoiled it for yourself,
right? Or
B, you're just way off and then you're a little disappointed because it didn't play out the way you thought it was going to play out. And that's exactly, I mean, I'm hoping that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this movie. I feel like it would be a bit of a letdown if they weren't. But I feel like
at this point they have to be in the movie.
I feel like they've got to be. But let's say if we go see this movie and they don't show up, I feel like there will be riots because so many people online have theorized and are now just expecting them to be in the movie.
Yeah.
I assume they didn't show up in that trailer. I didn't hear the dial. I didn't hear it.
They're not in the trailer. I think that was the delay because I think Sony wanted to show them and Marvel didn't.
Yeah.
And obviously Marvel won.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, trailers nowadays do show way too much. And the Ghostbusters trailer is an example of that. Mm-hmm. And I think if Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in the movie and they'd shown them in the trailer, I'm sure there are other surprises that we haven't seen yet, but I mean, come on. Yeah, we know that all these villains are in it now. And so it's like, save a little something for the movie.
Yeah, that's definitely blowing the load too early.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just, so anyway, I'm glad I didn't watch the Ghostbusters trailer. I watched the first one, and the first one did a great job because it only showed it up to a point. Like, I think the big moment of the first trailer was when the kids chase. Yeah, it was the first when the kids are first kind of driving the Ecto-1 through town and trying to catch, and they don't even show the ghost. They're just trying to catch Muncher, I think is his name in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's his name.
Yeah. So that's like maybe the midpoint or maybe a little bit further. I mean, so there was a whole lot of the movie that they hadn't shown in the trailer. So it was really nice kind of because all the rest of it was all a surprise, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel about Muncher?
Muncher felt like a ripoff of Slimer, really. I mean, I thought Muncher was fine. I liked the whole gag with him eating through things. And so I like that podcast releases him to eat through the bars so they can get to the equipment.
Yeah.
But, it just felt like he's the new Slimer, I guess, it's like it's a Slimer replacement. And I will say that was I wasn't disappointed with this film by any means. And I don't know where they would have put him in. So it would have been even just more fan service. But it's the first Ghostbusters. I mean, there's only, if you don't count the reboot, there's only 2 Ghostbusters movies, but Slimer has been in all of them. And so this is the first Ghostbusters movie that Slimer doesn't make an appearance. And I kind of almost wish he had been somewhere.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that Slimer didn't show up, but I did like Muncher. Muncher did. He was fan service. He wasn't necessary.
Right.
He was only there just to eat the metal later in the movie so they could get the equipment.
Yeah.
But he didn't really help the narrative at all.
Right.
But I didn't dislike him. I thought it was an interesting take on introducing a new ghost that's similar to Slimer, but not exactly Slimer.
Right. I actually feel like there were not that many ghosts in this movie.
It wasn't.
Yeah. There was Muncher, and then there was like the I don't even know if you consider the dogs, whatever they're called. I'm sure they have an actual name, but like the Gozer dogs.
Yeah, the gatekeeper and the keymaster.
Yeah. And then there was like the zombie guy sitting at the diner, which that's where I kind of expected Slimer to show up. Like we saw him at the diner, so I thought we were going to get another ghost somewhere else, and we were going to get Slimer in that little sequence, but we didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he could have been and had been fine.
Yeah.
Muncher really is just to get through the bars later, and it gives them a ghost to bust originally.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. They need a ghost to bust, and that's why he was there. But one thing I did really love about Slimer was his look. It felt very nostalgic. Like they designed him very similar to Slimer.
Yeah.
As far as like the details and giving him kind of a practical feel, even though we know it's CGI.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, it definitely has a very realistic aesthetic, even though it's kind of cartoony.
Right. Yeah.
It's a balanced design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of cartoony, there was a ghost that shows up. I think it's in that same sequence I was talking about where like the zombie guys at the diner. There's a ghost with like an eyeball that can kind of come out of its body and then get back in. I'm pretty sure I had that toy, and I'm pretty sure that ghost is in the cartoon show. So I thought that was kind of cool that they included a ghost from the cartoon series.
He looked familiar. Now I know where I recognize him from. The real Ghostbusters. Yeah.
And I think, the movies never had that gunner seat on the Ecto-1, but I'm pretty sure the cartoon show did. So I like that they included, little nods to the cartoon show that way. And I thought the gunner seat was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't made, as far as I know, I haven't really looked, but I'm surprised they haven't made like a Ghostbusters Afterlife Ecto-1 toy that has the gunner seat that comes out and everything.
I'm pretty sure it's coming.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
What do you think about Paul Rudd as Gruberson or whatever his name was?
I mean, Paul Rudd was cool. He was Paul Rudd.
He was Paul Rudd.
Yeah, he was Paul Rudd. Pretty much plays himself in every movie, and it works. It doesn't. It's not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing, but
he's charming.
Yeah, he's charming. Right. He's funny, and like I said, it definitely worked for the type of movie that this was. It was silly. And he definitely brought some, I don't want to say levity, but there are certain scenes where he kind of breaks the awkwardness in the scene.
Right. Yeah. There was a few moments with him that I really enjoyed. Like I really like seeing him as the summer school teacher who didn't want to be there, and he's just showing them Cujo and Child's Play. Yeah.
He's like, "What are you doing here? There's a really awesome movie playing in the next room."
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was good. But yeah, you're right. He's he's the same as Scott. It could be Scott Lang from Ant-Man teaching summer school. It's the same character basically. So yeah, but you're right. I mean, you hire Paul Rudd to be Paul Rudd. So
yes,
he did a good job with that. And I liked how, I didn't even think about it when you kind of realize that they're going the whole Gozer way. I didn't even think about the fact that Callie and Paul Rudd's character were going to be the gatekeeper and the keymaster. Like that didn't even, until I saw the dog at Walmart chasing Paul Rudd. I was like, oh, they're doing the Louis Tully thing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's cool. By the way, that Walmart was the emptiest Walmart I've ever seen. Like, I know he's supposed to be there late at night, but I mean, there was nobody in that Walmart.
That town is kind of small. It's pretty much just the dirt farm, the Walmart, and the main strip.
Yeah, that's true. With that hardware store or whatever.
The hardware store and the Spinner's Diner.
Yeah, you're right. All right, why? I guess there probably wouldn't even actually be a Walmart in that town, maybe, but because it's so small. But
well, I mean, my mother's family is from a small town, and they have a Walmart. Yeah.
Is it that empty?
No.
Speaking of Walmart,
two more people.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Speaking of Walmart, what did you think of the mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Man scene?
I loved it.
Did you really?
It was very what's the word I'm looking for? It was jarring, but in a very hilarious way. I love the way they executed that. Like these things were like massacring themselves,
right?
But they were having fun doing it.
Yeah, it was almost a little dark, but that scene, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I felt like it felt a little cheesy. It felt a little fan servicey because it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yes.
But at the same time, it was funny, like seeing them walk onto the grill and just like burn themselves alive and stuff. I thought was kind of
just walking. He was like, yeah.
Right. And the one in the blender,
that's the one.
I was like, geez, that was pretty good.
Yeah, but I agree. It felt kind of corny. I mean, there are plenty of corny scenes in the movie. But it was a fun scene to watch. And definitely, it was probably the most fan servicey scene in the movie.
Yeah. Seeing the dog for the first time in Walmart eating the dog food. I thought that looked really great. I was actually impressed that they used some practical effects with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it great. It was very similar to the original, but it felt just a tad bit too updated.
Okay.
Like a little too streamlined. And it kind of bothered me a little bit. I was like, something is off. It looks like the original, but something is off. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but I think it's just a little bit too updated.
Too clean looking, maybe?
Yes, it is too clean look. I think I like the crude look of it in the 80s.
Right. I got you.
Yeah.
That's cool. That makes sense. I actually want to go back a little bit to the very, very beginning. I jumped into the cast and I kind of forgot about the opening scene.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that opening scene.
I can't even remember the opening scene. What was the opening scene?
Well, I'll remind you. You saw it a little bit longer ago than I did.
I saw it on Thursday. I saw it on opening night.
Right. It starts off with you see kind of the mountain where the mining company is and everything, and there's very ghost looking type stuff going on, and then you see a truck kind of speeding away from there.
Oh, yes.
And it's Egon. We don't see his face. He's in shadow,
but
it's Egon, and he is at his house. He gets to his house and he tries to throw the trap in the dirt, but it doesn't. It fails on him, and so then he ends up getting. Does he get killed by the ghosts? Because he ends up sitting in that chair, and you kind of see the arms come out of the chair, kind of like it did for Dana Barrett in the first movie.
Yeah.
And then it cuts away. We see the PKE meter kind of fall to the floor and sit under the chair. But then it cuts away, and then we're with Callie and Phoebe and Finn Wolfhard's character, whose name I don't remember either. And so I wasn't sure if that was his death or if that was just him kind of losing that battle, and then he died, because they say he died of a heart attack.
Yeah, I assume that was his death, but when they said that he died of a heart attack, I don't know. Maybe he was
scared to death.
Yeah,
that could be.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't see Egon being scared.
Right.
Like out of it's weird, but out of all the Ghostbusters, he was the least fearful.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily call him courageous or brave, but he was kind of neutral on it,
Right. Well, he's very much like Phoebe. You know how Phoebe talks about how Phoebe at one point says something where like she gets very calm when she's stressed out or something like that.
Yeah.
And Egon has a line in the first movie where he's very calm, but he goes, I can't remember the line exactly, but he says, I'm terrified beyond rational thought or something like that. But
he says it so straight. Yeah. And another thing that kind of reminded me of that was when she said she was thinking about what Paul Rudd's character, what is his name?
Gruberson.
Yeah, Gruberson and her mom liking each other, and she said, I'm disgusted, but she was like, she said it so straight.
Yeah, she's like, inside I'm vomiting.
Yeah, inside I'm vomiting. Yeah, that I thought that was funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I really liked that opening scene a lot, and I really liked seeing Egon, even though we don't quite see him. Like it's one of those things where like we could totally tell it was him.
Yeah.
Or was supposed to be Egon, but even though we're not seeing him really, I also feel like the way. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it again. But when he sits down in that chair, it almost feels like he's expecting them to come.
Waiting for something.
Yeah, he's waiting for them to come. So I
think he knew when the trap didn't work. He knew he was gonna die that night. So I think, his death was actually a contingency plan.
Gotcha.
Because he expected someone to come,
right,
and hopefully
finish do it correctly
job.
Or whatever. Yeah. That's cool. One character we haven't talked about. Well, actually, there's two characters we haven't talked about yet. Let's talk about Finn Wolfhard. Trevor. Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think about his character?
Underdeveloped. I liked him, but he was underdeveloped.
I agree. He's the character who I feel like really has nothing to do in the movie except drive the Ecto-1. He is the driver of the car because he's just old enough, know. It would have been, I mean, I think Phoebe or podcasts could have driven the Ecto-1, but it gave him something to do basically. And so I agree. It's his whole character's story is he has a crush on Lucky and he drives the Ecto-1. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, excuse me.
No problem.
And I feel like they just put him in the movie just to get people in the seats, get more people in the seats, because he's kind of on a streak right now with Stranger Things and It chapters 1 and 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say people would go, "Oh, it's that kid from Stranger Things," or "Oh, it's the kid from It." Yeah. So
I think they had to put another recognizable face in there other than Paul Rudd, and it was like let's cast a younger recognizable kid in the movie, just to get some more nerds in the seat.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he's a good actor, and I don't think he does a bad job in the movie by any means, but
no, he's just not given anything to do.
He's just not given anything to do. So yeah, I think I agree. I think that is part of it. One character that I didn't expect to like and ended up really liking was Podcast.
I was not the biggest fan of Podcast.
Sure. Well, I totally understand why.
No, don't get me wrong. He had some funny parts. Yeah. But as a whole, I'm kind of in the middle.
I totally understand. Yeah. When he first shows up and he's, talking into the microphone, like kind of narrating Phoebe, whatever, I was like, I don't know about this kid. Yeah. But he just delivered every line so well. Yeah. And I really liked mostly I just liked the comedic chops. As a character, he's basically just Phoebe's friend. And
Phoebe needs somebody to talk to.
Right. And so he's maybe doesn't have that much to do either. He does help. He had the brilliant idea to release Muncher to get to the equipment. Yeah. Even though that wasn't the best idea. But I don't know. I liked him. I thought he was funny. And I liked, his narrating actually became funnier as it went along, I think. And I really like, there was that one scene where I think they're walking into the dirt farm and he's narrating it. And Paul Rudd's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "It's for my podcast." And he's like, "Creepy. I dig it." Or whatever. I like that. I thought that exchange was pretty good. Yeah. And even though it was a cheesy joke, I did actually like at the end when Ray Stantz was like, "You have that podcast?" He's like, "You're my one subscriber." Yeah. I thought that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that was a good joke as well. But like I said, he was cool. He had some very funny instances. As a whole, I just wasn't loving him. He was corny, and at times he felt a little cringe. Sure, but he was kind of like the kid version of Paul Rudd. As far as just bringing the comedic chops to the scene. Yeah, I also thought that Lucky was underdeveloped as well.
Yeah, Lucky really just seemed again to be Trevor's love interest. She takes Trevor out to the mountain, and that's when they first hear Zool or whatever it is they hear. But other than that, like, she's the sheriff's daughter. I mean, yeah, she's just there to be the fourth Ghostbuster.
Yeah, yeah. She felt very Winston like.
yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things where how would you do it differently? How would you develop Lucky a little more?
Well, I feel like you would have to develop Lucky and Trevor together. Yeah. I don't think either one of them are strong enough to be developed on their own. I did like when they were on screen together. I wish I could have gotten a little bit more of them. As far as Lucky, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of her emotional state as far as like being in this small rinky-dink town
and being the sheriff's daughter. I know that was supposed to be kind of a surprise, but
being the sheriff's daughter. And it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So maybe kind of making her be a little like the rebel.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was
yeah.
just thinking. Like
Yeah.
being the sheriff's daughter, you could be very rebellious. It's kind of like being the pastor's kid. You know, you're expected to be this way because of who your dad is. And so she's could be rebellious against that and everything, which, you know, maybe you see a little bit with them going out to the mining company, you know, whatever place, but not, we don't get enough of it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe her character could kind of help Trevor have a little bit more confidence.
Right.
Because he's cool, but he's very awkward, especially when he's talking to Lucky.
Yeah.
So maybe they could kind of help develop each other in that sense. He could kind of get her to be a little less rebellious, and she can kind of get him to be a little bit more confident.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah.
One thing I wrote, and I'm curious to maybe this isn't something that ruins it by any means. It's just something I thought about later. But I was thinking about Callie. So she's supposed to be Egon Spengler's daughter.
Yeah.
She's played by Carrie Coon, who is, I looked it up, 40. She's 40 years old this year. So she was probably 38, maybe when they shot the movie, 39. I don't know, depending on when they shot the movie. And that's how old I would say she's supposed to be in the movie. You know, she's supposed to be probably late 30s.
Yeah.
Well, that would put her at being born already by the time Ghostbusters 1 took place.
Yes.
And so, and you don't get that from the first movie. You kind of see it as all four of those guys are single.
Yeah.
Especially, well, obviously Peter is, you know, because he's hitting on Dana and everything, but like,
yeah.
But I don't, you know, Ray and Egon, I think they practically live at the firehouse. I don't, you know, they're not married men or even, you know, have a relationship or anything. And so, and I don't really see Egon having a one-night stand or something with somebody and then
I don't see him having a one-night stand or settling down. He just seems too engrossed in his research.
Right.
Honestly, I don't see any of them having a family. Other than Venkman with Dana at some point later down the road.
Right.
Because, you know, Ghostbusters 2, she already had the baby with some other dude.
Right.
But, you know, clearly Venkman was still had some feelings for her.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really see any of those three really having a traditional family life.
Right.
Winston, I could see him definitely having a family.
Right. Especially, it's something I want to get into later, but especially the Winston of this movie, which I don't. Did you stay through the credits?
Yes, I stayed for the whole thing.
Yeah. That Winston I could definitely see having, you know, a family and but Egon, you know, I wish I had learned more about that. Like how early did he leave Callie?
Yeah.
You know, because it kind of made it seem like based off of the pictures in his basement, like maybe he had been gone for a long time, but had been kind of following her progress through life, you know, from a distance kind of. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the math now. Like how old would she have been? When did the first movie come out?
84.
84?
Yeah. I mean, if she had been born in 85, let's say it was like a year after the first movie, she'd be 36 now in 2021.
So she's probably a little older than that. So she was probably an infant to maybe a toddler during the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say she was like 2.
Right.
I think that it kind of works because of the kind of character that Egon is. Like I said before, he is very engrossed in his research. I could see him neglecting his parental duties.
Right. Sure.
And not on purpose, not that he doesn't love his daughter.
Right.
It's just that his passion is science. And I could see him not being a very engaged husband or father, but still having tremendous love for his daughter as we see in the movie.
Right.
And I love how they explained, you know, he actually left to keep her safe. well, I don't know if they explained it, but it was definitely alluded to.
Sure.
It's definitely open for interpretation, but it makes sense. It kind of makes sense.
And like I said, it's not like a deal breaker. It's not something that makes me go like, oh, this movie sucks now. But because to me, it feels like the way it makes sense in my brain is Egon had her after the events of at least the first movie, but probably even the second movie. And that one came out in 89. So just because I don't know, it almost makes me sad to think of, I know obviously he does kind of neglect his parental duties because he leaves her at some point, but but it almost makes me sad to think the Egon in Ghostbusters 1 has a daughter out there that he's just like, I'm too busy being a Ghostbuster, you know?
And I feel the same way. But like I said, the kind of person Egon is, I could totally see him just being interested in his work.
Right.
And not necessarily being uninterested in his daughter, just I don't know. I don't
just
know how
too
to
focused on one thing. Yeah, I could see that. It's like a character flaw, basically. He's so engrossed or so kind of in love with science and this.
Okay, kind of like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is great at being Spider-Man, but he's terrible at being Peter Parker. That's not because he doesn't want to be a good person. It's just that Spider-Man is such a huge part of his life.
Right.
That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So the math didn't quite add up for me, but but again, it's not anything. That's not like a deal at all.
Yeah. What'd you think about the actual story?
So I actually really liked the story a lot. I liked the idea. Well, I guess no. I mean, it's not like Somerville was Egon's hometown. He moved to Somerville specifically because of Ivo Shandor or whatever, and the fact that this is where this stuff was happening. So I like that. I liked that, it was very connected to the first film. I like that, it was Gozer and this portal to hell or whatever, that is opening up in this mountain. I liked all that. I liked that it, the connection, Ivo Shandor and the connections to the first film. And I like the story a lot, and I like the family element to the story with Spengler and his family and all that. So yeah, I actually thought the story was pretty solid.
Yeah, I like the story. It was kind of the same thing as Ghostbusters 84, but not quite. It was smaller, a little bit more intimate, family oriented. My favorite thing about it, I absolutely loved how they handled Spengler and paid tribute to Harold Ramis. That is easily the best thing about the movie. Even though he's not actually in the movie, his presence is felt throughout the entire film, and I love that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's kind of a weird trend that we have kind of found ourselves in, where these movies are using the likeness of an actor who has passed away in a film. Like, we saw it in Rogue One. I think there was another one, and now we've got it with this one with Harold Ramis, and in that opening scene, his face is in shadow and everything. And I was like, okay, that's a really cool way to kind of have Egon be in this movie, even though he's not going to be in this movie.
Yeah.
But then when you see that you don't really see him, but when he's a ghost and he's moving the light and he's pointing Phoebe to certain things, you're like, okay, his presence is here. Yeah. So seeing that scene at the end where Phoebe's shooting the proton pack or whatever it's called, and his hand comes and puts his hand over her hand, you're like, oh. And then I mean,
my eyes started to sweat a little bit.
Part of me thought that was all they were going to do was just see the hand, but then they full on show Egon, and he looked great in my opinion. Like they did a fantastic job, maybe the best job I've seen so far.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was very well executed. Like, it was excellent. However, I kind of wish we had seen a little bit less of him.
Right.
Maybe show the hand and show his face for like 3 seconds, and then that's it.
Yeah, yes and no. I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, I loved seeing the original Ghostbusters like look at him. At first, they look at him and they're like, he's actually here, and that was funny enough. But then I loved hearing Ray, because we've heard that Egon and Ray had kind of had a falling out, and of course Ray didn't understand that Egon took all the equipment and everything and left the Ghostbusters because he was trying to save the world. So it was kind of nice seeing Ray say, I'm sorry for, or, they kind of patched things up. And so that was kind of nice. But then you're right. It kind of goes a little too far. I mean, yes, we're glad that Callie understands that her dad did everything for a reason, and she loves her father, and we see them hug. That is where I feel like it almost went a little too far. Yeah. Like he just kind of sticks around for a little too long almost. Yeah. Yeah. And I also thought it was interesting. Like, yes, we see ghosts can interact with things in this world, but it was also weird just seeing a person hug a ghost. Like that didn't quite make sense to me, but because usually ghosts slime people in these movies. They go right through people, but
the ectoplasm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But at the same time, it was very heartfelt, and I liked it, but you're right. It kind of goes on just a little too long.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. If they had just ended it right when the Ghostbusters see him, and then that would be the last time we see him, and maybe Callie looks at him, gets a little teary eyed,
right, and he nods at her or something, and then kind of dissolves or whatever. That would have been cool. Yeah,
the hug is a little bit too much.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what do you think about the original Ghostbusters showing up?
I loved it. That was the highlight of the movie right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Phoebe calls Ray while she's in jail, and Ray is, at his occult store or whatever that I think we see a glimpse of in the second movie. And, he's mad at Egon, and then he finds out that Egon has died. And there was a part of me that I thought for sure that's not the only scene that we're going to have. Like that's, Dan Aykroyd. I know Bill Murray was very kind of on the fence about coming back to play Venkman and stuff, but I was like, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the other people in this movie. They can't be the only scene. So when they show up, it to me, I loved it. It felt a little convenient that they knew exactly where to go and that they were there right at the perfect time. But at the same time, that's when they needed to show up. Like it worked out really, really well, I thought. And I loved seeing, even though they're so much older, but I loved seeing all three of them in the suits with the proton packs. It
was comforting to see all three of them. And it didn't feel awkward at all. It was a little convenient that they all knew exactly where to go, exactly when to show up. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it was comforting, and the comedy worked. I loved Venkman. Venkman is my favorite Ghostbuster.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, I love that scene. That entire third act is really
very,
good.
Very good. Yeah, I agree.
Really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Real quick before we go kind of into the post-credit scenes, what did you think about the music in the movie? The score?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was definitely much like 84 and 89.
Yeah.
But it felt a little bit bigger. A little bit. There was a little bit more grander to it, and I guess that was kind of to play on the nostalgia factor of it, and I think it worked.
Yeah, no, I agree. Every time you heard a little bit of the themes from the Elmer Bernstein score from the 84, that all worked really well for me. And I even, like you said, they took some of those themes and kind of made them bigger, more grand, and that stuff really worked too. But there's a couple of pieces of music that were original, at least as far as I could tell. And those were actually the parts I didn't really care for in the score.
I could agree. With that.
It almost, a couple of those moments felt a little cheesy. And I think, I don't know the composer who I could look up, but I don't think I had ever seen his name before. So I don't know what else he's really done. I can look it up here.
Let's see.
Rob Simonson.
Mm-hmm.
He's done a couple things actually that I have heard of. He did The Way Back with Ben Affleck and
Spectacular Now.
Tully. Oh, it's another Jason Reitman film. Gifted. Hey, it's another McKenna Grace film. Yeah. None of those movies though is from just looking at that had scores that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
That's not to say he's a bad composer, but like I said, I feel like the original pieces of music in this didn't work as well as the, Elmer Bernstein Ghostbusters score stuff.
Yeah, he's more of a get the job done guy.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about the whole, like the Gozer aspect of it, with Ivo Shandor and Gozer returning and, the J.K. Simmons cameo?
J.K. Simmons cameo I thought was actually pretty good. I really liked when he looks over at podcasts. Podcast is freaking out. I love that. Oh, I also loved seeing how Egon had set up the proton packs to shoot at that well thing every day so that to kind of keep the ghosts at bay. I loved seeing that. I thought that was the coolest thing. And then I really liked seeing Paul Rudd under the, as possessed as the gatekeeper or whatever.
Yeah.
Destroying it. And so that way the ghosts could come out and everything. Also, when Phoebe's looking down into that well, this is the one. There might be more Ghostbuster 2 Easter eggs in here that I didn't notice, but that was kind of the one Ghostbusters 2 reference I saw. It seemed like that kind of cloudy looking. That was creepy. It was like almost souls trying to get out of it. You know,
it looked like the slime from.
It did. Yeah, it had the pink
Ghostbusters
slime.
2. Yeah,
I'm almost positive they kind of made it look like that pink slime from Ghostbusters 2. So I thought that was a nice little nod to the second movie. But I liked it. I really liked. I liked that they. Again, it's kind of fan service, but I love that Gozer was the big bad of this film. J.K. Simmons. He's not in the movie very long. No, but I liked what they did with him. I liked how he was like, "I did this for you," and Gozer just rips him in half.
Yeah, I did like that. And the whole, like the whatever that pit was, in the mountain.
Yeah,
that was kind of creepy to me. Like that was actually really creepy. I wasn't necessarily scared, but I was like, this definitely got some heavy horror elements.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's one thing that I like, that even though it was a smaller movie, you definitely felt like there was a threat coming.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't feel what's the word I'm looking for? Generic or run of the mill. It definitely felt like a big specific dangerous threat.
Yeah, I agree.
I loved Gozer. Who played Gozer? It looked like
Olivia Wilde.
Was that her? Yeah,
and actually, according to IMDb, it was. There's another actress, kind of an unknown actress, labeled as the spirit of Gozer, but I think that was when. You remember when they're trying to activate the dirt trap? And like you kind of see Gozer, but she's like half there. I think that's when that actress was playing Gozer. Yeah. And I was going to say that's the one thing I didn't like about Gozer was that they used Olivia Wilde. I wish they had kind of gotten an unknown, because I'm watching the movie. I'm going, oh, sweet, it's Gozer. And then all of a sudden I go, is that Olivia Wilde? Like it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
It's a little bit distracting because her face is so recognizable.
Exactly.
But she's under a lot of makeup, so I wasn't 100% sure if it was her.
Yeah, same here.
But I liked how she played the character. I liked the way they wrote it. I loved how they tried, crossing the streams, and she just rips them apart.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what they just immediately, they're like, this has worked the first time. So they kind of immediately go to it. Yeah.
And Gold's is like, nah. I learned my lesson.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, that whole third act was awesome. Gozer was dope. I love J.K. Simmons. His cameos is Evo Shandor, and I like that he like built that whole town
right
for Gozer. Like he was ride or die for Gozer.
yeah, no kidding.
And I don't know if this was on purpose, but the fact that the town was named Somerville, I think that was kind of alluding to the afterlife. Because I don't know what culture it is or what kind of mythology it is, but I know some religion has the afterlife is named Summerland.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe it's in a book or something. But I think that was on purpose that they named it Somerville.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
That's awesome. Stuff like that is interesting to me. I'm a nerd.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. That's cool. So there's 2 post-credit scenes in this movie. The first one is just a small little kind of funny fan service scene with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver. It actually, the credits, so they kind of do the, movies like this and like the Marvel movies, they always have their opening credits at the end of the movie. And it said with special appearances by Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson. Then it said, and Sigourney Weaver. And I went, where was Sigourney Weaver in this movie?
Right. She wasn't in this movie.
And then as soon as that happens, it cuts to a scene with Sigourney Weaver. And I go, oh, okay. Yeah. What did you think of that scene?
I loved it. It was so funny. I love how they did the callback to the first movie.
Right.
He was like, do you have these cards marked?
It's like, no.
It's like, no, yes. I thought it was hilarious. And I loved how Sigourney Weaver was like trying to keep a straight face, but like Bill Murray is he's just so funny. Yeah. He's just so naturally funny that it was hard for her to keep a straight face.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's confirmed, but it was definitely alluded to that they kind of finally settled down.
Yeah, that's kind of how it felt in that scene, that
they felt like they were at home in their apartment in New York.
Yeah, and he had just maybe mentioned, I used to shock patients, and she was like, "What?" And they said he got the thing out and everything. Yeah, I liked it too. It was a nice little, they don't specifically say that they're together, but it is how it felt. It felt like they had been together for many years, and so it was nice. I'm glad they didn't just have Sigourney Weaver just show up randomly in the movie earlier. So it was nice having that scene with Dana and it not really being like a weird kind of shoehorned in thing. Now the second post-credit scene I really liked a lot. And that was with Ernie Hudson and Annie Potts. And we learn a lot about Winston's character and how he's pretty much become the most successful person of the Ghostbusters. It seems like he went on to create like a financial empire essentially. And we learned that he's paying the rent for Ray's store. And so I just loved all of that. I thought it was so cool just to hear about Winston's life and see how he had what he had done past the Ghostbusters and stuff.
Yeah, they kind of owed Winston that.
yeah, I agree.
Because in the first movie he was supposed to show up in the first act, and he doesn't show up until like a little bit past the midway point.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's in the second movie a little bit more, but not nearly as much as I think he should be.
Yeah.
But they definitely owed him that, and I'm glad they made him very successful.
Yeah, I agree.
He bought the old headquarters. And was fixing it up, and
which is funny because in the movie, and Ray might have just been talking. Yeah, but Ray says the firehouse was turned into a Starbucks.
Starbucks, yeah.
But obviously in that scene we see that it's still there and it's just empty. So it is, it's nice seeing how. I mean, this movie kind of alludes. I don't see it happening, but this movie kind of makes it think that there's going to be another Ghostbusters movie with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want that because I feel like this movie was a perfect conclusion
right.
to
Especially
the franchise.
Especially with Egon, and the ghosts and everything. Like it was, I agree. It was a great Ghostbusters 3,
Yes, absolutely. But it's Hollywood. Hollywood likes money. Yeah. So of course if they're gonna at least try to make one.
Sure. But at the same time, I feel like they've been trying to make a Ghostbusters 3 for forever. And, I don't know if the scripts have just not been up to par, because Bill Murray for a long time has just not wanted to come back to be Peter Venkman. And so that's what I see. That's how I see. I mean, if you want to consider it Ghostbusters 4, I don't see it happening because of that. Even if this movie is really setting it up that way, I don't see Bill Murray jumping at the chance to be Peter Venkman for a full movie again.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even think that they're setting it up for the original cast to be the Ghostbusters. I think the new Ghostbusters are
the kids.
The kids.
Well, I would agree with that, except the final shot of the movie before it goes into the credits is New York City. And the camera pans, tilts down to the bridge, and you see the Ecto-1 driving across, the bridge. So you think it's the kids in the car in that, not
yes,
in New York City? You think they all moved to New York City and became the Ghostbusters? Well, maybe Winston is funding it, but it's the kid. I don't know. I took that as that was Ray and Peter and Winston.
I don't know. It could go either way.
It could go either way. I agree with you that, it makes more sense to follow the kids in the journey, with maybe having Ray or Winston as like a mentor.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think that's exactly how I think that they're going to go with the franchise.
And if they do a sequel that way, I'd see it. I don't know if it'll be. I kind of agree with you. I don't think they should. I think this movie had kind of the perfect ending, like I said, especially with Egon. But if they were to continue it with the kids and have Ray or Winston be kind of a mentor character and have, help them with their ghost busting business or whatever, I could kind of see that, except for the fact that it's hard to buy kids running a business. You know what I mean? Or kids even just being professional Ghostbusters. Like, they're not professionals in this movie. Obviously, they just found the equipment and did it.
Yeah, not
and
at all.
And it made sense. I don't know how I could see that making sense, but like, I don't know. I think if it's up to Jason Reitman, I don't think there'll be another one. If it's up to Sony, there'll be another.
Be another one. Yeah.
That's my last question for you. Is what did you think about Jason Reitman's directing, and the fact that it's Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the first two?
I thought he did a wonderful job with his direction. The story could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but I understand they wanted to keep it small.
Right.
But I think he did a great job.
I do too. I agree. Yeah. I think he this was probably his biggest movie in terms of special effects and things like that. He's kind of known for doing more drama, smaller scale type movies, good movies. Not all of his movies have been big hits, but like his earlier films, especially Thank You for Smoking, Juno, Up in the Air. I loved a lot of those movies. Are great.
Yeah, I love Juno. Juno's a really good
that's
movie.
A great movie.
Yeah.
But I thought he did a fantastic job with it. And I'm glad we got it. And I do feel like, even though you could look at it as nepotism, the son of the original director got to direct this one.
Oh, it's definitely nepotism, but I'm okay with that.
But I was going to say, but I also kind of like it. It's nice to kind of have part 3 be directed by the son of the original director. It's kind of goes into almost with the theme, of the movie, with Phoebe being the granddaughter of Egon. So handing it off to a new generation of people,
Yeah. Art imitating life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but who better to direct it?
Right.
He's clearly a fan, just like we are.
Yeah.
And nobody knows the franchise better than him. Maybe Dan Aykroyd, but
right.
But this is him and Dan Aykroyd's baby. He wanted to make sure that the baby was taken care of, and he did a great job.
All right, well, let's go into a rating. What would you rate this film, Stu?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. 4 stars.
That's exactly what I was going to give it. 4 stars. I'm almost with us talking about it makes me almost kind of have even more appreciation for it. I feel like I'm almost tempted to give it 4.5, but I think I'm going to stick with 4. 4 out of 5. I think that's a solid score for it. Yeah, I really, really liked it. I'm looking forward to buying it when it comes out and watching it again, or maybe watching all 3, kind of having a little marathon.
Yeah. I like how we just ignored 2016.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not in the same universe, so it's
no.
In this sense, it's okay to ignore it.
And it's also not very good.
Right. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Ghostbusters Afterlife. You can always leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com. You can leave a comment on our facebook.com/SM and SM podcast. You can tweet at us or leave us a comment on Instagram. Both handles are @cinemaheroes. Or you can leave a comment on this YouTube video if you're watching it. And of course, if you are watching, we'd love to have you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you any way you want to reach out to us. Stu, I think everybody knows how to reach you now. This is the 5th time you've been on the show, but if you want to tell them just in case, go for it.
Oh yeah, you guys can find me at SmoothJStew on YouTube. Just search SmoothJStew in the search bar. You can also find me on Instagram at SmoothJStew, as well as Letterboxd. I've started doing written reviews, so you can find me on there at SmoothJStew.
Very nice. I'm on Letterboxd too, actually. But I think my handle is Yoda811, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that about wraps up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.
Stay smooth.